First of all, I'd like to thank you for choosing our Honda CRV. Now, in this handover video, we're going to look at some of the features and functions on the outside of the vehicle, also on the inside of the vehicle, so you can get the very most out of it, and also some of the things to be aware of from a maintenance point of view. For unlocking and locking your CRV, we can actually use the remote. Also on this car, we have keyless access as well. We'll start off with the remote though. So if we want to unlock our car, we can simply press the fob and the door will be open for us. And of course, when it comes to locking it, we can press the lock button. Now, if we press it a second time and hold it in, that will fold in our door mirrors for us. What it would also have done is put up any windows that we'd left down. So the reverse of that is if we press the unlock button and we press the unlock button again, it will wind the windows down for us, letting any warm air out as we're approaching the car on a warm day. Now on this one, you can see it's also sliding back the panorama roof. So that would be us open, and as soon as we open the door, the mirror will unwind itself. But as I mentioned before, to lock it and hold it a second time, it will wind those windows up for us and fold the door mirrors in. Now there is another way we can actually gain access to the vehicle, and that's just by having the key on our person. So the car is now locked and I'm in the detection zone. I could be doing this from the driver's door, the passenger's door, or even the tailgate. But putting my hand in here, you'll hear it unlock, and now I can actually open the door. And when it comes to locking the vehicle using the keyless system, all we do, we just close the door and then hold on top of there. And again, we can do it a second time if we want to fold those door mirrors in. Now we'll take a look at those maintenance items underneath the bonnet. So of course we need to pop the bonnet first. Now just by the driver's feet, we have a little lever. Now if we make our way to the front of the car, what we'll actually feel for is the little lever which is just above the H badge. So we pop that out of the way, pop the stay up, and now there's very little to do under here. So on the extreme left, we have the reservoir for the screen wash. So obviously as you use that, that's going to need to be topped up. Next item along is the brake fluid reservoir. So again, just keep an eye on that. That should stay pretty consistent. Further along, we have the dipstick. So our recommendation is, especially when the car is new, is every time you fill up with fuel, check the oil level, because the engine will be warm and also you'll be on a flat surface. So check the oil. If it needs any, top up with the recommended grade. Next along, we have our coolant tanks. So 2 expansion tanks, one for the actual petrol engine and one for the hybrid system. So again, you can just keep an eye on those. There should be no movement in those, but they should be checked when cold, rather than, of course, the oil should be checked when it's warm. Now we do have a traditional 12-volt battery on here to allow lights and the unlocking of the doors to operate, but of course this is a hybrid, so we do have a high voltage battery at the back of the vehicle, and anything within these orange shrouds, that's to do with the hybrid system, so we don't need to do anything with those at all. So those are the items that as an owner I'll be looking out for and topping up some of the fluids as we go along. Now from a maintenance point of view at a dealership, our service schedule is 12,500 miles or 12 months. Those are the times we'd like to see the car back in to make sure it's in tip-top condition for you. Now, one thing that we do have under the bonnet here is a little sticker relating to the fact that we have lithium-ion batteries at the back of the vehicle. All that's telling us is that we need to drive the car for at least 30 minutes every 3 months, which I'm sure everybody's going to do. And that will keep those batteries at the back, again, in excellent condition. Now, when we come to closing the bonnet, obviously we'll lift her up, take that out of there, pop it into the little clip, and from a couple of inches or so above, just let the bonnet drop under its own weight. Now that we're in the vehicle, I want to make sure I've got the seat, head restraint, seat belt and steering wheel all set up for me as the driver. So this feels a bit close. I'm going to wind the seat back. We've got electric seats here, which are fantastic, making sure I can get good pressure on the pedals. That distance feels really good to me. I'm going to adjust the recline of the backrest. Again, that feels like a nice driving position. Next thing I'll do is the head restraint. So that's a little low. I think one click up should be good. Yep, that feels about right. If I wanted to, this can actually tilt a little bit further forwards. That's maybe too much. So we'll release that back. Yep, I think that's a good position for me. So now I've got my seat set up and the head restraint. Because we've got the electric seats, we also have memory seats. So what we do, we press the set button when we're happy with it and press and hold that number 1, because on the back of my key it says driver 1. For the second driver, you can set another position, go through the same process and press button 2. Now that's done, I'm going to put my seatbelt on. Now that feels a little high, so I'm going to drop that down a bit. Perfect. Now we have electronic pre-tensioners on this vehicle, so what I find is a little bit of slack is taken out of the belt. This is a really nice feature, safety feature, but also comfort feature as well. So if you're driving in a sporty fashion, whether that's braking or cornering, you may even feel some of the slack being taken out of the belt in those instances as well. You can select that off if you want to, but by default that should be on for you. So now I've got my seat, head restraint and belt in the correct position. I want to make sure the steering wheel's where I want it. So a little lever just down there, pull that towards me, make sure I've got good visibility. I can do sort of lock to lock turns and we'll lock that in place. So now we're good to carry on. So now we've got our seat and seat belts adjusted along with the steering wheel, it's ready to get ready to drive the car. So because we have a keyless system, all we need to do to actually start the car is to put our foot on the foot brake, because it's an automatic transmission, and simply press the power button once. This will put the car in ready to drive mode. Irrespective of whether it's going to be an EV or hybrid mode, you'll know it's ready to go because you'll see a green car on the dashboard with a green line underneath it with an arrow at either end. That means you're good to go. Then you can select which direction you want to go in. So just like a traditional auto, except we have these buttons rather than a lever. We've got park, we've got reverse. Now for reverse, you'd pull that backwards, so difficult to catch that by mistake. Neutral, just a press, and also drive, which is what we're going to do to start with. And once you've got the D pressed there, you'll see that is also sort of echoed onto the dashboard as well, and you're good to go. Just to the left of the drive, neutral, reverse and park buttons, we have 3 further buttons for driving. So we've got Sport, Econ and EV. So if we work from the top down, when you press the Sport button, that's going to sharpen the throttle response. If you want to use the Econ button, it kind of does the reverse. So it will soften the throttle response. It will also though make my air conditioning and my cruise control run more efficiently and more effectively from an economy point of view. Now, the one underneath is EV. So as long as the conditions are suitable, you can actually force the car into electric vehicle mode. So it's as silent as possible, and at that point, there are no tailpipe emissions whatsoever. Now on the other side of this console here, we have our parking brake. Now to give us lots of space down here and also make it really easy to use, we've gone for an electronic parking brake. That means it's very simple and hardly any pressure to actually apply and take that brake off. However, if you're traveling, so any kind of speeds, this doubles up as an emergency brake. So every car should have a secondary braking system. So if you were traveling, when you pull this, what it will do, and obviously this is only in an emergency situation, it will apply hydraulic pressure to all 4 wheels. So it's nice to know you've got that just in case, but of course that's an emergency braking system. Now underneath that we have a feature called brake hold. This is a really great feature that works incredibly well with the electronic parking brake. So it's no hassle when I'm driving along, come to a standstill, put the parking brake on. However, if I don't want to do that at the start of my journey, because I've got my seatbelt on, I simply press the brake hold button, and every time I come to 0 miles an hour using the brakes, the car will then hold the brakes on for me when I take my foot off the brake. So just by my right arm on the armrest for the driver, we've got a few different controls that we can adjust and use as we're driving along. So if we work on those from the top down, top left hand corner, we've got a button to electronically fold the door mirrors in and out. Really useful feature. to the side of that, we have a little slider which has L one side, a center position and R. This is for when we want to adjust the mirrors. So sliding it to L position would allow us to use the little four-way pad underneath to adjust the angle of the mirror. Slide it all the way to the R position would allow us to do the driver's position. And then when we're done, you can leave it in the middle. However, there's another feature on here. With it in the middle position, if you select reverse, the mirrors stay at the same angle. If you slide that selector to the L position, when you pop it into reverse, that left-hand mirror will actually dip down so you can see your wheels curbside, minimizing the risk of causing any damage while parking. Again, a great feature. Just below the angle selector, we have the button where we can unlock and lock the cars from inside the vehicle. Below that, we have a button when illuminated, which shows us we've actually isolated the other three windows from being sent up or down. So only the driver's window will be able to go up and down when we have a little light in that window button. On this car, all four windows are one touch. So if we want to, you'll find there are two positions on there, and when we want to push it down a little bit, the window will come down a short way. If we push it all the way down, the window will go all the way down. And exactly the same to send the window back up again. Working in from those controls by the driver's armrest, just by my knee, we'll see a selection of buttons down there. So again, if we work sort of top left and across, the first one we see is our button to actually open our tailgate. So if we're inside the car, we just press it for maybe a second or so. So it's not a tap, you have to consciously press it and the tailgate will open up. Next one along on this particular car is that we have a button for the heater element that sits underneath the wiper blades. So this is really great. What we've done is put these extra bits of sort of heating, like we do on the rear screen, but on the front, just at the bottom and the side of the window. So on those sort of frosty, icy mornings, it will automatically, when we press this button, defrost that section. So we're not going to get our wipers stuck to the glass. So that's our second button across. Third button is for parking sensors. So we have front and rear parking sensors. When we have the little illumination, a green light in there, that means they're active. And obviously, when that light's not on, they're inactive. Moving across from that, we have a picture of a car crossing over some lines. So we have two features in here. We have lane departure warning, which works on dotted or dashed lines. And we have road departure mitigation, which would work on a solid line. They're both designed to keep you safer on the road. So lane departure warning gives you a warning if you're about to depart from a lane. So it uses the cameras looking for the dotted lines, and if we get close to that line or even cross it, we'll get audible, visual and even tactile warnings to encourage me to come back into the lane. Now, road departure mitigation, that works on a solid line because that means there could potentially be the edge of the road or oncoming traffic. So the car on my behalf, if I've not indicated to change lane or to move, it will actually use braking of individual wheels to encourage me back into that lane. So not something to try, but something that's there in the background to help you keep safer on the road. Then the one on the right hand side says HUD, head-up display. So the button in the center will allow the little shield on top of the dash to go back. The screen will pop up and then we'll get the displays on there. That's how we turn it on and off. And if you particularly like this feature, if you leave it in the on position, every time you power on, the screen will come up. When you power the car off, the screen will go down and a little protector will come across, making sure no bits of dust or whatever get in there. Now, just above the HUD button, you have an up and a down arrow. This actually changes the angle of the screen. So when we're projecting the information onto it, depending on the height and the angle that the driver's sitting at, making sure we get exactly the right angle. So that's our head-up display. Then if we're working backwards, we get a little button that has a picture of a car, a little bit of a car, and it says off underneath it. This is to turn off our collision mitigation braking system. Wouldn't recommend this to be turned off because it's actually a safety feature. So this is our autonomous braking feature that uses radars and even cameras when it comes to pedestrian detection. And if it sees the chance of a collision ahead, it can actually apply brakes on my behalf to mitigate that. It will also give me early warning, so it's entirely possible that based on the audible and tactile warnings in this car, I can actually avoid the accident. The next button along is to turn off the acoustic alert that we have when this vehicle is in electric vehicle mode under sort of 8 miles an hour. Because there's no engine noise, the car is incredibly quiet. So to alert pedestrians, we have an acoustic alert, comes out of a speaker just behind the front bumper. If you wanted to turn that off, that's that little button down there. And the final button we have is to reduce the actual impact that VSA has. So our vehicle stability assist system helps prevent wheels spinning. So the only time you might want to turn this off is if you are stuck in some shallow mud or fresh snow where you sometimes need to spin those wheels to actually get going. Once you're then moving, you can actually turn this feature back on again, making sure you stay as safe as possible on the road. Now on the left hand side, this one is responsible for our lighting. So that could be headlights, it could be fog lights. The thing you're going to use most, I would imagine, is going to be the indicators. So when we're wanting to indicate left, if it's just a couple of flashes we need, just push it to the point where we get a little bit of resistance and it will flash the indicators 3 times. If you're waiting to leave a slip road maybe on the motorway and you want it to be more than 3 flashes, just push it past that point of resistance and it will stay on till either you cancel it or the steering column information will tell it that you've made a turn and it will self-cancel. Then we look at the lighting. So the default position is auto. This means it will actually put the lights on for you based on the daylight sensor or daytime running lights, whichever is appropriate. If you wanted to override that, you can rotate it 1 more position into side lights and a further position into dip beam. To get to full beam, you'd actually push the stalk away from you. To take that off, you bring that back in again. If you wanted to give somebody a little flash just to say, I'm here, you'd pull the stalk towards you momentarily. So I'll put that back into the auto position because that's my favourite. And what it also does, it allows high beam support system to operate as well. This is where when you're driving, above sort of 25 miles an hour, there or thereabouts, what it will do is if it sees there's nothing in front of you and it's night time, it will actually take your dip beam and put it onto main beam. And then as soon as it sees headlights or tail lights in front within certain parameters, it will actually pop those back into dipped beam for you. Next one along is for our fog lights. So we've got front and rear fog lights and we can just literally rotate that center dial to give us that front and rear fog light. The stalk on the right hand side, this is responsible for controlling the wipers at the front and the rear of the car. So when we're driving along, if we've just got a little bit of rain on the windscreen, but the actual screen itself is fairly clean, just pop it up 1 position and that'll give us what we call the mist position, so a single wipe of the screen. If, however, there was a little bit of mud maybe on the windscreen, you wanted some screen wash on there, as well as it wiping the screen, you just pull that towards you and both of those things will happen simultaneously for you. If you are in more severe rain and you need more than just a mist, I would leave it in the auto position personally, because it's using the information from the rain sensor on the screen to determine how quickly the wipers should go and also the delay when they're parked. You can actually further fine-tune this as the driver with this little control right in the center to make it more or less sensitive, getting it perfect for you. If you'd rather have a fixed position of speed for the wipers, you can actually go into the low or the high position right towards the bottom of the movement there. But as I say, my favourite is the auto position because I can then just concentrate on driving. I know the car's looking after keeping the screen clean for me. Now, on the end, we actually have the control for the rear wiper. So what we can do, if we rotate it towards us, it will give us a squirt of screen wash on the rear screen. We've also got that facility right at the other sort of end of the movement of the switch as well. And in between that, we've got intermittent for an intermittent wipe, and we've got the fixed on position. But as I say, either end of those, you can actually encourage some screen wash onto the screen just to give it that perfect clean for you. So these paddles just behind the steering wheel, these are to actually allow us to change the amount of regenerative braking we get when we're just coming off the throttle but with no foot on the foot brake. So if you've owned an automatic vehicle before where these have been sort of shift paddles, this is going to feel a little bit different for you. So because this is a hybrid and the road wheels are not directly connected to the engine, when we come off the accelerator there's no engine braking. So what we can do, we can actually make it feel like we've got engine braking by using these paddles to increase or decrease the amount of electrical resistance within the motors. What this also does, it kind of puts more charge into those high voltage batteries at the back of the vehicle. So looking at the face of the steering wheel, we've got some buttons on here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to work from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. So on my left, we have a selection of buttons, some simple ones. We've got plus and minus, that's for volume of the audio system. Just underneath that, we have a little button with an eye on it and what looks like sort of 3 pages. When we press that button, it allows me to look at the information I've selected on the screen in front of me. If I press it again, it will bring up the actual icons I can choose from. Then I can use my left and right arrows to pick things like information on all-wheel drive, where the power's going to, or it could be any number of things. So we can scroll through those and also personalize them. Underneath that, we have our telephone buttons, so we can make and receive phone calls, obviously using our Bluetooth connections. And we've also got the speech button as well. So if we were using CarPlay, for instance, or Android Auto, we could actually use our assistants, whichever type they are, to ask our phone to do various things for us. Now moving across to the right hand side, we'll see some safety features and also some convenience features. So the easiest one to start with on this particular car is the button for the heated steering wheel. So nice and easy, just in that bottom left hand corner. Then above that we have up and down for HUD, head up display. This allows us to scroll through the pages of information on the display in front of us. Now, the other controls, in order to use those, you need to have made sure you've pressed the main button. When you've pressed the main button on your screen, you'll know that it's on because you'll have ACC or LIM and LKAS at the top. So that's adaptive cruise control, or LIM is limiter or speed limiter. And then we've also got the lane keep assist system. So that means they're able to be then turned on. To actually activate them, just along from the main button, we've got our LKAS button. When we press that, you'll get some dotted lines, kind of simulating the dotted lines on a dual carriageway or a motorway, and it's in standby mode. So when you're doing dual carriageway motorway speeds, the camera in the center of the vehicle is actually looking for them. When it recognizes them, those lines will, rather than being sort of hollow or shaded, they'll go solid. So you'll see those solid white lines. This means now the system's active. So what it will do, it'll try and keep you centered in your lane. If I get a little bit too close either side to the white lines, it will actually put some steering input in to bring me into the centre. This is obviously if I haven't indicated. Of course, if I indicate and change lane, the car knows my intention is to change lane, but it can offer resistance to help keep you in that lane. A brilliant feature for those longer journeys. As I say, motorways, it's perfect for that. Now above we have a circular button on here, and we have various different features on here. I'm going to start at sort of 9 o'clock on the dial. So we've got LIM. If we press this repeatedly, it'll cycle through LIM, intelligent LIM, so we have like a traffic sign in front of it, and ACC, adaptive cruise control. So LIM is a speed limiter. You can set with the button at the bottom that says set the speed that you want your limiter to go to. At any point you can increase it or decrease it by the plus and minus buttons at 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock, which is a brilliant feature. So what will happen is if you've set it to 50 miles an hour, that means you cannot accelerate past 50 miles an hour. So it keeps you nice and comfortable in knowing you're not going to go past that speed unless you need to. So if you need to, what you do is just go full movement on the accelerator. That will actually override the system because sometimes you might need to go over that for your own safety. If we press it one more time, we get intelligent speed limiter. This is where, rather than just having one that we set into it, it uses the information from traffic signs at the side of the road saying, okay, this is a 30 or it's a 50 or it's a whatever. It uses that information, The car stores it onto the dashboard and also uses that as our speed limiter. Now, the final one is your adaptive cruise control. So your adaptive cruise control would say ACC on the screen, and with this you can be driving along. Again, motorways and dual carriageways is absolutely perfect for. And you get to the speed you want to go to, press your set button, and it would actually be set at that speed. But let's say you were only doing 50, but you're on a motorway and you wanted to go up to 70. You can press the plus button, and if you hold it down for a little while, it'll go in blocks. So quite easy and quick to get up to the 70 mile an hour speed on there. And this will set your cruise control now to 70, even though you're only doing 50. Now, the reason it can do this is because we've got a radar on the front of the car, and this will keep you a predetermined amount of seconds away from the vehicle in front. So roughly speaking, you can have like a 1, 1.5, 2 or a 3 second gap between you and the vehicle in front. And we adjust that by the button that is about 3 o'clock on the dial. So we've got different bars. The more bars we've got, the more distance and time we've got between us and the vehicle in front. And this is an absolutely brilliant feature for those people doing bigger mileage. You can adjust that at any point you want to with the plus and the minus. If you want to cancel it, you can tap on the brake, or you can press the actual cancel button, or even the main button. Any one of those three would actually cancel it. When you turn it back on, if you just hit the plus or the resume button, it'll take you to the speed that you're at before. Brilliant, brilliant feature. So now looking at the climate control and also some of the other heating facilities we've got on the car, just going to look down here. So clearly the passenger would operate this one, but they can operate their heated front seat. Straight away it will go into 3 if we want level 2, level 1, or turn it off. And of course, I've got mine on the driver's side as well. Then as we move up, we've got some nice buttons in the center there for climate control itself. So we have the on-off button, which will turn the blowers on. Now at the moment, there's a couple of things we can see. It's actually brought up the temperature in the top of the screen there, so it's saying it's 18 degrees. We can see there's a little green light on there which says push for sync, so synchronizing, because this car has dual zone climate control. Now these dials on the outside, they would actually adjust the temperature for us. So if I adjust the temperature on the right hand side, we can see they both go up now to 21 degrees. However, they're actually synchronized. If we push that button so they're not synchronized, now when I change mine, let's say 22.5, the passenger stays at 21, and they could even turn theirs down if they wish. Moving across now, we've obviously turned it on. We've got the fresh air coming in. If you wanted to just keep the air inside the cabin recirculating, you'd press the next one along. Next one along says rear, so this has got a picture of the rear screen and also the door mirrors. When we press that one, it's the heated rear screen and also door mirrors, getting those elements heated up to sort of defrost those. And for the front screen, we'll hear it'll actually pick up a little bit of speed with the fan. It will make sure that the air conditioning is actually on, and it will focus it all on that screen to keep it nice and clear for us. Then above that, we have the ability to change the fan speed down and also up if we want to. And then we have this climate button. So everything I've done so far has been using the buttons and the dials down here. If I wanted to, I can press the climate button on the screen and actually turn my air conditioner on or off, change the mode where the actual air's coming through, and change the fan speed as well. So now we'll take a look at the Connect. This is our infotainment system. We're on our home page, so you can see things like navigation, audio, and of course your telephone features. Now we're going to start in the top left-hand corner with navigation. So if you've used Garmin before, a lot of this will look very familiar to you. And we have the little magnifying glass just over there. Now this is where it's a little bit different to a traditional Garmin system, because we've actually put our Honda dealers in there as preset addresses. So anytime you want to locate one, pop it into the navigation, you've got them all listed there for you as well. Now a lot of people will want to set their home as one of the destinations. So the easiest way to do that is to select Go Home. You have 3 choices now. I could manually enter the address using my postcode or whatever. I can use my current location, which if I was sat on my driveway, it'd be perfect. Or you can choose one from a recently found destination. I'm just going to go current location, and that is now set in. So next time you press the go home button, it will literally navigate your route to your home and you're good to go. So the next little feature down, we've got phone on here. So I could either press the phone button here, or we've got these keys a little bit closer. So I could press the telephone here. It does exactly the same thing, just different ways of choosing it. Now it says here there's no phone connected. Would you like to select a phone to connect? So I'm going to go yes for the first time. So we can see the different phones that are there. So we're going to add a Bluetooth device. So I need to make sure that mine's on. I'm using an iPhone, so I'm just going to go into my Bluetooth, go into the menu, we'll go continue on here. Now they're trying to find each other. So very shortly we'll get, there we go, we can see iPhone, so we tap on the phone and it will give me a code on here. So I just make sure the code is the same. On my phone it's asking me to pair that, so I'll just click pair on that one and we'll allow my contacts, and we can see we're connected there. We've got the little phone icon. Absolutely brilliant. We're now connected to the iPhone. So I can press my back button there and we can actually see that the iPhone's connected, and we can see we've got Bluetooth connection and also my signal strength. So that is now my phone all connected in. So we can be even on the home page if we wish. We can see we've got connection. Any calls that come through, I can literally answer off the steering wheel, as we mentioned earlier. Again, keeping you nice and safe. Now just below the phone button, we've actually got one for settings. Now there are lots of different settings you can go through here. You can see them for yourself. What I'll do, I'll show you one thing we can do on here. I'm going to go to vehicle, and we've got deflation warning system right at the top. There are, as you can see, many different things down here, how you can personalise the car specific to yourself. But let's imagine we've had a temperature fluctuation overnight and it's much warmer than it was yesterday, and our deflation warning system light has gone off. Providing we've now checked the tyre pressures, they're all good. There's no punctures in there, no foreign objects. What we can do now, we can actually reset it. So all you do, you'd pop onto the top one there, deflation warning system. We click on the initialize, and that's it now done. Simple as that. So just one example of some of the things you can actually get involved with in the settings on your CRV. So the next feature along is AHA. This is a pre-installed app that we at Honda have put on the car for you. So you do need an internet connection, so you can use your phone as a personal hotspot, and once you've done that you can set up an account which is free, just an email address, some details in there, and then you have access to various podcasts, internet radio stations, or even traditional radio stations that you wouldn't maybe be able to hear if you were, say, abroad. If you were listening to Radio 1 or 2 in the UK, perfect. But if you went over to France, you wouldn't be able to pick it up through FM or DAB, but with AHA you'd be able to. The top right hand corner of the screen is our audio button, so we could press it there, and again, just like a map or telephone, we've got a button on the side that we can press as well, just for convenience. So the last time we used this, we were on DAB. If we want to change the source, we can do it off the little thumb wheel here. I'm just going to press the button on the screen there though, and you can see that we have FM, DAB, LW, obviously long wave, medium wave. We have a USB connection. We have an iPod connection when we're using our USB, Bluetooth audio, smartphone, audio apps. That would be something like the AHA we just mentioned, and also HDMI. The info button or tab on there, that will allow us to get some of the driving information. So the fuel economy for our most recent runs, or actually our instantaneous fuel economy, and some other information on there as well. Again, nice to have, that you can just tap that while you're driving and see how you're doing on your fuel economy. Of course, remember, you can also get that straight in front of you as well. And just above the Connect screen, we have the button for the hazard warning lights. So just in the roofline, we have a little holder for your glasses, which is nicely lined, keeping them nice and safe. Now, if we just push it part of the way up, what we can do is, rather than moving our head over our shoulder, we can just take a little glance up at the conversation mirror, but still be looking straight ahead, keeping us nice and safe, just in case we were tempted to have a look behind us. So just in front of the conversation mirror, we have a collection of buttons. And again, we'll work through those left to right. So on the extreme left, we have a button for the LED courtesy light for the passenger. Next along, we have the e-call button. So there's a protective cover on that. And if you wanted to manually press the button because you wanted the emergency services, you could press that button. Just behind it is the cancel button. However, What it will also do is, if there was an accident where the airbags were deployed on the vehicle, it would actually automatically call through to the emergency services, and it knows your direction of travel, your location, so even if you didn't speak to the person on the other end, those emergency services can get straight through to you. Now, across from that, we have the tilt function for the roof. We can also slide the roof back, and we'll now push it forwards. Next one along is for the sunshade. So we can wind it back, we can stop it part of the way, or we can wind it forwards, and again, if we don't want it all the way, we can just stop it wherever we want it. Next one along is for the ultrasonic sensors. Now this is to turn it off, and it would only do it once. So if you wanted to leave the ultrasonic sensors for the alarm off every time you left the car, you'd need to press that every time. So obviously the idea is the car is fully secure. Why would you want to do that? Well, if you left the windows down a little bit, of course any air movement would trigger the alarm. So if you were leaving the car with a little bit of a gap in the windows, you could press this button before locking the car and the ultrasonic sensors wouldn't be active. Just below that, we can again similarly turn off the tilt sensor just for one locking of the car, just so that if there was any movement in the car while you were away, it wouldn't trigger the alarm. Then we have the courtesy light for the driver, and right at the front we have the ability to turn off these courtesy lights completely, or we've got them operating when the doors are open, or we can have them permanently on, but this is operating both together. Looking straight ahead at the meters in front of me, on the left hand side we've actually got a meter that will show us the sort of state of charge of the high voltage battery in the back. Also, you'll see what position the lights are in. If you're on side lights or auto lights, that'll be on that small section on the left as well. So moving across from the left to the centre, this is where the majority of the information is going to be. So right at the top we have the charge and the power indicator. Moving down from that, we actually have our speed. On the left of that, we have the park, reverse, neutral or drive icon, just so we know in which direction obviously we're going to be travelling. To the left of that, we know we're ready to drive because we can see our image of a car with the green line underneath it. It just means it's ready to drive, because of course sometimes you'll be in electric vehicle mode and you will have no engine running whatsoever. Now, just to the right of the miles per hour, right in the centre, we have a little circle. Now, when we've passed a speed sign, it will actually put that information up there for us, reminding us we're in a 30 or a 50 mile an hour zone. Moving down from that, we have the ability to scroll through various pieces of information. So you can choose exactly what information you want on there. Below that, we have the ambient temperature. We also have the mileage for the car, or we can scroll through for trip A and trip B on there as well. And if you want to reset it, just press and hold that button over there. And just to the bottom right corner, we have the time. The final part of the dashboard information is that on the right hand side. So here we have our petrol gauge, and we actually have a petrol pump icon there with an arrow pointing to the left. This is to remind you that your fuel filler flap is on the left hand side of the car. If you'd got brake hold on, that would also be indicated there for you, and again, if your parking brakes on, you'd have that kind of information in that right hand side as well. And now we're at the back of the car, we can get our remote out again, and there are a number of ways to actually open the tailgate, but if we press and hold the tailgate button, what we'll find is that will actually wind its way open for us at the height that we want it to be. Now, the way we'd adjust the height is simply by, if this was too high, lower it down a little bit. If that's the desired height, press and hold this button until you hear a beep. And now every time it opens, it will open to that height. Now we can close it again using the remote. So by using the keyless access system, we have another way to open the tailgate. Keys in my pocket. All I'm going to do, because I'm in the detection zone, is touch the little pad underneath, which will allow the tailgate to raise up for me. So this is going to go to the preset position that we set it to earlier. And now to return it to its position, simply press that button and release it. So another way we can open it from the outside of the vehicle is by using the hands-free control. So I have the key in my pocket again, and if I've got shopping bags in my hands, I can literally turn around, kick underneath the car, and the sensors will pick up my foots there and raise the tailgate. Now, of course, that could work the other way as well. I could have taken some suitcases out of the car. Now my hands are full, so I would just underneath the car, and that would close the tailgate for me. Now we're in the boot, what we can do, we can put the tonneau cover all the way forwards to show us the immense space of the boot. And we have levers on either side where we can pull those and the seats will fold down. So we've got an incredible loading space inside that boot. Now on the boot floor, if we lift this up, we'll find our jack, our temporary repair kit and our compressor, should we ever need to use those if we get a puncture or something of that nature. So now that we've released the fuel flap from inside the vehicle, we can open the door, unscrew the cap, and of course it will pop into this little position here, stop it bumping up the rear wing when we fill the vehicle up. And when we come to pop it back in, we can't over tighten it because you'll hear a ratchet type system where it gets to the tightness it needs to be before we close the flap. So if you want to fold the seats down from inside the vehicle, we've got a catch at the top of the seat. Just pull that down and it will fold it down really nice and easily. Now we do have a 60-40 split, so if you wanted the larger seat down, it'd be exactly the same process on the passenger side. And to fold it back up, really nice and easy. So we've got the seat folding done. If we want to fold the armrest down, for rear seat passengers, not only is it an armrest, but we've got cup holders in there as well. Really good feature. So for those times you've got a third passenger in CRV and they're in the middle seat, you'd want to take the seatbelt from the roof. So this is kept out of the way when you don't have that third person in the vehicle. You plug this end straight in there, and then of course what we're going to do is plug this into the female in there. Then we've got our third belt. Of course, releasing it is traditional on this side. However, it might be a little unusual over this side. So we use the blade of the seatbelt and we actually push that in there to release this end, and we can pop it back up into the roofline. So if you're going to have young children in child seats in CRV, we would always recommend that you use an Isofix or iSize child safety seat. So the lower points are just inside here, where it will lock into, if you like, the frame of the seat. And we have a top tether point just on the roofline here, where we detach it with the webbing strap, so we've got 3 points to fix the seat into the car, making it as safe as is possible. So to operate the child locks on the rear doors, we've got a little switch here, push that down, and that's activated the child locks. So now the door can only be opened by using the handle on the outside of the door. When we push it back up again, it means the internal and external door handles will open the door. Thank you for joining us on this handover video. We hope you found it useful and informative. Now, if you do have any more questions that we haven't answered for you, please feel free to contact your local dealer who will be delighted to fill in any of those gaps.